Okay, and now our problems should be fixed. And I'm glad I can introduce Daniel Domscheit-Berg from openleaks. Daniel will talk about the current status of openleaks and the activities who are going on on this camp. Give a warm applause.
Thanks. Yeah, so it's nice to see that so many people came to the camp, to the shelter. It's quite incredible to see. We're here since last week, Thursday, and every week more people have been arriving. And by now this whole place looks like what I was hoping it would look like. And I think we're hopefully having good weather as well in the next few days to have a good few days here at the camp and some party. So it's great to see all of you, and I'm very happy that you all came to listen about a status update on the openleaks project. So as the Herald has introduced, I'm going to basically talk about two different parts in the presentation. One is a general status. I guess that's a bit overdue, and most of you have probably been wondering what has happened in the last few weeks or even months. It became a bit silent. We're still not online, and I'll update you a bit on this topic and whatever is going on right now. And then actually this talk here in respect to openleaks at the camp is just the beginning. So I'm basically will be introducing you to a couple of the activities we're planning. Some of you might have noticed down in area C5 we have set up a tent. It's a big sand-colored tent. It's probably the tent that is keeping the wind away from all of you guys. We had our share of experience in the last few days with that as well, so we're a bit behind schedule, but I guess we're doing just fine. Whoever generally is interested over the next few days to discuss any topics around what we do, what our partners do, I don't know, whatever comes up in this presentation that we talk about, if you're interested in this, if there's anything you want to talk about and give us any feedback, tell us what you don't like or whatever. We're mostly around in that tent, and we really welcome everyone dropping by just to talk about whatever he's interested in respect to our project. So what is it that is keeping us busy? I'll start with that. We've announced that before. Currently we're working on the alpha phase, as we call it. It's the first test phase that actually we planned to launch many months ago, back in times when we thought this was all in a much smaller scope than it is by now. It's 10 organizations at the moment that we are speaking to. And this is a mix of NGOs and the media and a couple of more specific sites that I'll be talking about in a bit. And we are basically trying to work out how much there is a basis for collaboration in between all of us. 5 of these organizations we've been talking to a bit longer already, and these are the 5 organizations that we are going to partner with for the first phase in the alpha phase. I'll announce who these are in a bit and give you some more detail, but that's basically what it looks like at the moment. The ones we are not working with in the alpha phase, so let's say the 5 organizations that are missing here, are midterm kind of strategies we are working on. So we've been approached when we came up with this whole thing last year in September. We've been approached by a lot of organizations from all kinds of fields in society that wanted to work with us. And we've tried to identify a couple of these endeavors that seem to be on a more general level interesting. And these are the ones that we want to work with in the next phase that will come out, and we are talking about these. These will be mainly multiplicatory effects. So it's quite interesting to see who has been approaching us. There's a project called Science Leaks, for example. They're based in Brazil at the moment. They are not doing anything online just because they are missing exactly what we provide, which is the technology. So it's a bunch of scientists in Brazil that have come up with this project. It was inspired by WikiLeaks and this whole movement at some point in time as well. And they've been exposing illegal trafficking of human eggs, for example. So for fertility clinics in the United States, they buy human eggs from women in Brazil and they smuggle them over the border. And they've exposed some of these things. They've also exposed illegal genetic experiments that are going on in Brazil. So their idea was to provide a platform that can expose something very specific, which is fraud and illegal activity and corruption in science. And we've already been contacted by other groups of scientists all around the world that want to do something similar. So this will become kind of a multiplicatory thing, where if we manage to help these kind of portals, we'll be seeing material from one specific area, hopefully being submitted, and then multiplicated also by the media partners we are working with. There are also a couple of plans for focusing for that next phase on a couple of specific countries. So as I said, we've been talking to some people in Brazil. There are some talks that we're doing in respect to South Korea. So we've been approached by people in Greece that right now are in a very bad situation due to the economic crisis, and that would like to see these kind of technologies. And from the current negotiations and coordination with the first 5 partners, hopefully we can speed this whole thing up a bit and in the future move a bit faster in respect to work this out. So that's not proper because it has an L too much, I'm just realizing. Another thing we're working on, and this is something that came up over time as well, is that we need to properly make an entity out of openleaks. So it will not work. We've been communicating that before as well. We want to be an entity. We do not want to run a project where no one really knows what it is. But in order to work with people, to properly work with people, we need to be institutionalized in some way. And that's something that's keeping us up a bit as well. We've wasted a couple of weeks doing research ourselves before we then finally got back on an offer from one of our partners who recommended a lawyer firm in Hamburg. And now we're talking to these people and they're helping us to find the right organizational form to incorporate, if you want to call it like this, or institutionalize our project. It will most likely be, if all works out, a non-profit here in Germany, so something like a charitable limited. That's something we're working on. And we do that because we think it, first of all, makes sense. We have declared we want to be very transparent in how we're going about this, and we feel it should be something that's properly set up in society, not just some dodgy project. And it will also give stability to the people working with us. So whoever wants to work with us, wants to understand what it is that we do, will at least know what kind of an organization he's dealing with and how it is structured and how it's operational. So on the technical end, which might be, or will probably be much more interesting for you guys, our submission system is finished for quite some time already, actually for a couple of months, and it's ready for deployment. All that we miss, basically, or all that we require are the templates from partners to put up different sites with different brandings where people can submit documents to. So that probably leaves everybody to wonder, if the submission system is finished for such a long time, why the hell are we not online yet? So that's where the but comes in. This is all a bit about the bigger picture, you see. Running, this is also maybe a lesson we learned the hard way over the last few years. If you just put up a website where people can upload information and you have no real proper plan what is happening with that information, this might really be a cool thing for this community, and it might be a cool thing for a couple of more tech-savvy communities or people hanging around on the internet. But it's not really going to make a real difference in society, because this is kind of an echo chamber here. You guys are aware of what's happening on the internet, and I'm aware, and we can all be very happy about all these projects, sites coming up where we can put material on that are going to publish this material. But at the end of the day, my grandmother hasn't heard about it, and most people in society have not. And if you do not have a structure that can make sure that the information that people put there, that people upload, that they submit, that sources take a risk for, that these submissions, this material will be used meaningfully, then you're wasting a lot of potential. And while we were going on about thinking about this project and developing the project, we realized more and more that it is actually not only, and maybe even the least part, about providing this submission interface only. I mean, it's a very important part of this, but it's in the same way important to offer a whole environment around this topic, to make sure that the journalists or the NGOs we are working with actually have secure access to this information, to this material, that no mistakes can be happening there. I'm not sure how many of you have worked with journalists before on a technical level, but I can tell you it's hell. You know, most of them, and this is also something I'll be talking about in a few minutes, it is inherently important that we educate these people, because we kind of depend on them, you know. They do a job for society. Their role in society is really, really important. They are like supposed to be the independent control of power that we have established as the fourth pillar in society. And they don't understand this technology, and they don't understand the implications of using a Gmail account just because it's more convenient than using their email account at the company they are working for. And they don't really understand, most of them, I don't want to generalize too much, but most of them don't really understand the implications of using modern day technology and what this can mean for them, for the security of them, their sources, and so on. So there is a lot of education that needs to be done, and there is a lot of structure we have to build, a lot of processes we have to build in order to make sure that this whole thing we are working on, in the end, holistically makes sense. And it's not just a nicely working upload mechanism, but the problem begins the moment that somebody touches the material that comes in. So this is what we do. We're basically working on not just providing an anonymous Dropbox, but providing the proper environment for this whole story. And this begins then with how people can access material, how material will be anonymized, how it will be dealt with in the system, how it will be shared, what kind of collaborative features partners will have to work with each other, and these kind of things. So there's a lot of work to do, and we're somewhere in the middle of it. So we thought about this kind of environment for quite some time, and we thought about how to maximize the possibilities to weave it with these organizations that we are working with. And what we do in openleaks and what we'll be talking about in a couple of workshops over the camp as well is kind of the essence out of all these things that we thought about. And as I said, the devil here is really in the detail. So I'll give a few examples in a few minutes that might help to understand this. So a couple of the topics that we are very heavily doing research on is kind of circulating around these. So there's source anonymity, that's I guess pretty obvious. How do we go about implementing this site in a way that sources can remain anonymous? What do we do if we cannot trust that every source with critical material is able to use Tor, for example, which in the ideal world, I agree, would be the case. Or I2P, or whatever kind of other anonymizer they could be using. So in a world where most people will usually use SSL, what can you do in order to give them some additional protection that's not just protecting the privacy of their data, if you trust the encryption, but also maybe their identity? So this is one area that we are working on. How do you minimize traces people are leaving in browsers? So as a very simple example, imagine a newspaper, for example, now is working with us, and they have a leak site that you can upload information to. Now, if someone goes to that leak site and the leak site contains style elements or pictures or whatever embedded into it that you cannot find on the regular website, you will be leaving a trace in the browser cache that is identifiable just uniquely to that leaking website. So we are aiming at identifying these kinds of details to make sure that we can, let's say, build a template that does not contain anything that a reader wouldn't have seen on any other website. Yeah, so in order to foster deniability on that end for a bit. And some other things in that area. Then we are working on a more sophisticated solution for anonymization in respect to metadata and all these things, and the standardization of documents that we receive. This is quite a big chunk. This is something we've been struggling with in WikiLeaks for years. You're getting documents in all sorts of formats. If you're very unlucky, people send you like very wide Excel spreadsheets, and if you want to convert these into PDF, you're not going to have a lot of fun if people are actually supposed to use that afterwards. But if you just have to deal with like a dozen different document types that can come in, and you have to provide an output that is sort of unified, that contains metadata, that is meaningful, that is searchable, that is built in a fashion that the partners can easily use it and not be confused, then these are all things you have to think about, and that also require work and some kind of innovation to be done. And then there is one more topic that we'll be talking about in a workshop as well, which is circumventing web bugs. And this is actually, apart from the dilemma around anonymity, or let's say about the SSL dilemma, apart from that, this is the biggest problem we have identified. So I'm not sure how many of you, just out of curiosity, I guess most of you will be using Firefox with no script, or at least a few of you. So I'm not sure how often you're actually checking how much stuff is being blocked by these scripts if you don't use all the JavaScript that people are embedding in their websites. But we've been, just because there now will be this connection between a partner website and a submission website for that partner, and if it is just a link on, let's say, a newspaper website saying, click here if you want to submit us material, now there is this link in between these, and you have to take a look at how the website is built and what kind of privacy traps you can run into in respect to that. And if you look at how that works, actually it's a complete nightmare. You know, most newspapers we've identified, and it goes for some of the NGOs as well, they're using something in between 8 and 12 third-party JavaScripts loaded onto their website. Now, if you look at how JavaScript works, I can easily give you a JavaScript that's just loading more JavaScript from somebody else, and in the end, you have no idea how that chain works. And if you put a Vimeo plugin on your website, you will also get Google Analytics and stuff like this. And in the end, your website is so bugged that there is no privacy. So that's a bit of a problem, especially when readers go to a newspaper and they read a story, and below the story it says, if you have a document that relates to that story, you can submit it here. And now maybe there's someone else that's just running a JavaScript for purposes of identifying how many clicks per, or how many uniques per day you have or something like this. But somebody else is also implementing a JavaScript monitoring what is being clicked on, you know. And then you could easily end up with a JavaScript that's just monitoring who is clicking the link to the submission site, and there you are in a problem. Yeah, so this is another area. I'm just throwing out a couple of examples where we're trying to understand the situation and then come up with solutions to circumvent that. So right now we have a good understanding of what the German media sphere looks like, how advertisements are being handed out, how... am I missing anything behind me, or...? Ah, okay. Well, as long as I'm not, yeah, probably it's you know, it's the wind. You know, it's been on me for a couple of days, and that it's just following me, I think. But at least this will not collapse compared to the tent we have down there. So, let's hope not. Yeah, so these are a couple of these areas we're looking into. And again, we'll be doing a couple of workshops that I'll be talking about next, where we'll be identifying or talking about in more detail in respect to these topics. And we are really highly encouraging anyone here that sees that as a problem as well, or that thinks this is interesting, to just talk to us about it and maybe get some ideas started or some exchange going. So, getting to something a bit more concrete in respect to what's happening. As I said, we have set up a tent in area C5. It's right beside the parking lot. It's a big tent, 6 by 16 meters, and about 2/3 of it are a workshop space that we have set up. So we have tables, we have whiteboards, there's a beamer, like a projector and a screen. We even have like small cardboard and markers, and you can make a real workshop down there. So we're using this workshop area for a couple of workshops that we run ourselves, and the rest of the time this area is open for anyone else that is here that wants to share whatever he is doing or working on with somebody else but didn't bring a tent. So we can provide you with a shelter and some space, a couple of tables and chairs for people to sit on. And if you have anything to share with this community, just drop by. There will be an entry on the Camp Wiki this afternoon with a schedule where you can just schedule stuff. So right now, Birgitta here, actually you could all give her a hand while you're at it. She's sitting here in the front row, Birgitta Jonstad here from... From the Icelandic Parliament. Everyone that has listened to any talk that mentioned IMI before, the Icelandic Modern Media Initiative, should know who Birgitta is. She's a bit sick, but nevertheless she came to the camp. And she'll be doing a workshop on IMI and, let's say, the interaction between the community and the political sphere in our tent. You can read in the schedule when that will happen. There will be a guerrilla knitting workshop, so for anyone who wants to do some more hands-on stuff, that's happening there as well. We will have a magic show for kids. So if any of you brought kids, we have Markus Kompa here from Kanzlei Kompa. He's not just a fantastic lawyer, but probably one of the best magicians you can find around here. He's going to pull off an awesome show for all the kids you can find. So if you brought any and you want to have some spare time, I think Markus is happy to take over your kids for his magic show. There will be a crypto workshop by the Telecomics and a couple of other things. So you can see that in the schedule once that is up. It will be on the wiki page. And then there's going to be 3 workshops that we are doing. So workshops 1 and 2 will focus around media-related topics. So there will be one workshop which is happening tomorrow from 12 to 1:30, and will be just whatever journalists or media folks or anything related are here, and you want to learn a bit more, just get an introduction about security that you should be aware of, maybe just get an idea in what kind of direction you should look. We'll have like a 101 session for all of you people, just to get you started and maybe find out a bit more about what kind of education is needed to be done. And secondly, we will have kind of a roundtable discussion tomorrow from 3 to 4 o'clock, where we would like to actually ask a couple of questions to media people that are here. So usually it's the other way around. They're asking us lots of questions, but we never get to ask the questions that we have in order to understand this whole sphere a bit better. So that's what we're trying to do tomorrow for 1 hour in the afternoon. So again, whoever from the media might want to drop by, or whoever is generally active in this field, we're very happy to talk to you. And then, which is probably for most people the more interesting workshop, on day 3 in the evening, I think it's beginning at 6 o'clock and it's open-ended, we will be running a workshop on the security of leaking websites. So we really thought about how to go about this in a fashion that I'm not just standing here for 40 minutes, 45 minutes, giving you some insight or some impression of what it is that is concerning to us, but we'd actually like to share that knowledge. As we said before, we are working on an open knowledge database as well. We want to share the knowledge and the expertise we're building up, and we thought in the form of a workshop that might be the best way to go about this. So on day 3 in the evening, we will be having this security workshop, and that will mainly be consisting of a live test of the openleaks system, as well as the system of a couple of other sites right now that are operational, where people can send leaks to. So that is for one other reason, which is that these sites are live. And something we are quite busy with as well is to just talk to these people and the people running these sites regularly, because people are submitting information there, at least they could. And we think it's quite important to make sure that nothing can go wrong there, and that it's not a lack of technical expertise that in the end will put someone in trouble without it being necessary. So we are in a very active exchange with a couple of these sites, and we're giving them feedback. We're asking them for feedback as well. We're just exchanging ideas and bouncing bits back and forth. And we have agreed with 7 other sites, among them the Privacy Box from the German Privacy Foundation here in Germany, KH Leaks, which is run out of South Korea, Irish Leaks, State Leaks, and a couple of others, that for that workshop, they would be very happy if a couple of all you talented folks here just came by and helped us to look at their site, find out what kind of security flaws there might be, see if there's anything enabling you to break into the system, and just give them feedback. And if it's just from a user experience perspective. For that, so we don't start from scratch, we've developed some kind of best practice guidelines. So we have made a list of what kind of detail we think should be looked at. That list will be worked on, and in the second part of the workshop, all of you will get their own legal time with in a bit of a privacy with these sites, and you can have a go on your own. Generally, that security test that we are planning would, especially if it involves openleaks, would mean that we have to be live. So to who, if that's not obvious yet, it means that openleaks has to be live, and it will be live. So this is, let's say, the biggest surprise that we brought, if it's a surprise at all, because I actually read it on Heise a few days ago. But we will be live at leaks.taz.de. Our technical folks are at this point in time working on setting this up. It was actually planned to be running on the campsite here until we found out that for the first time I'm aware of, at least, there is no co-location space. So just as a feedback for next year, it's very important that a couple of people volunteer to take care of the co-location space, because I think there's lots of people here that do not know what to do with their servers. So just as a suggestion for next year. So we're doing it a bit differently now, and it's being finished, and at this afternoon it will be live at leaks.taz.de. Which brings us to the question of why is... I don't go for it. Okay, so which brings us to the question, who is actually Taz? Some of you might know, the Germans would, and who are all the others? So for the first phase, as I said, we'll be working with 5 organizations, and these are 2 German newspapers, which is the Taz and Freitag. They're both Berlin-based. One is a daily and the other one is a weekly. We're working with the Danish Dagbladet Information. We're working with Expresso, which is a weekly from Portugal. And our NGO for the alpha phase is Foodwatch. So what I think is pretty nice, generally, is that our partners are here. So a couple of editors are here, a couple of their admin folks are here. They're all sitting here on the right-hand side. If you want to talk to them, if you want to ask them about the motivation or about the experience working with us, or I don't know, whatever, they are available on site. And generally, I hope that there's just enough interesting things going on other than talking to us, to make it worthwhile for these people to have come to the camp, and for the technical folks maybe also to learn some things they can carry back into their organizations. So what we want from you, and why we're actually doing this, is that we want your feedback. You know, when we announced openleaks and how we would go about it, and even in the late days of WikiLeaks, there was one big criticism, and I agree, because it's very important to have that criticism, which is, how do you verify that what you do, how do we verify, or you in that case, how do you verify that what we do is actually substantial and is not just hot air or technical trash or whatever, but how do we prove that what we do is secure? So we've always said that we want to be very transparent about this, as transparent as possible. And we're working in this direction very actively. We're having reviews with people that we trust, that are looking at the source code for now. At some point in time, hopefully we can start to open source parts of the system, have people maintain bug reports, the code repositories and all these things. But we're not there yet. On the other hand, we still want you, all of you, to have a look and give us feedback. So we thought, if we bring this up for 5 days here at the camp, where there probably is the highest density of concentrated hacking talent for this given point in time. And we all tell you to try and break it, try to break our system and show us that you're better than us, than our technical folks. Give us feedback of what you think about it. Just use it and tell us that the interface is no good, or I don't know, whatever. All this kind of feedback is something we want from you, because we hope that we can leave this camp smarter than when we came. And we want to be sure for ourselves that the system won't break the first minute we switch it on. We want that our partners feel a bit more convinced about this, and we want that people in the world feel more convinced about this. We want them to understand that what we are doing is hopefully serious, and that at least there is a community that had a look at it before we went live and maybe fell into a pit or something like this. So we want your feedback, and we would love to have you and all your talent around the camp to take a closer look for starters. And anything else in respect to more transparency about the technicalities will be taken from there. So the question now, and I can see every single one of you is asking yourself, why the hell should I care about this? I'm going to go down and I'll be partying tonight, and probably tomorrow I'll be tired. So why the hell would I care? And I'd like to just say that I think it is inherently important, and I've said that in the past as well, because this community has such an important role for the future. All of you are so important in how we determine what the future looks like, what the technical side of our future will look like, and how this technical side, what the influence of that technical side will be on the freedoms that we have in society. This is such an important part. We are kind of playing a key role in this community. And as bad as I feel sometimes about this getting so much attention, and probably would be much nicer if there was not so much press around sometimes, and if this was not so hyped up and all of that. I mean, that's at least the feeling that I'm having. But on the other hand, I think it's really important because it has to go into the heart of society, because we are kind of responsible. We're the only ones that can do that. If we don't come up with solutions for that, and we don't come up with testing these systems, then who else will? There won't be anybody. And in the end, we'll just be looking into YouTube and thinking, like, how the hell could all of that develop? So that future of a free world needs all of you, and it needs help with a couple of very strategically important topics. And I think the whole topic around transparency and the spread of truthful information is one of the more strategically important topics. So all of you feel motivated to help out, hopefully. There are a couple of other things to do. So we have a new version of the video. Maybe some folks of you have seen this video that's been dumping or vegetating on our website for a couple of months now. There is a final version of this now. We have the transcript for this final video version ready as well. And we would like to ask people here that are not German or not English to get in touch with us over the next few days in order to translate that, and maybe find people here from a radio station to record it. So we could get a recording as a voiceover for the video in as many languages as possible and put this online with the website. There will be a new version of the website going online today as well. We restructured a bit, we put up some new information and gave updates. We have that web bug problem that we are researching. This is not a topic that we can generally fit in openleaks. I think it's a bigger topic than what openleaks is doing. We'd just like to get in touch with some people that might think this is an interesting topic. They would like to hear what we did, and then maybe talk about how that topic can be worked on in the future by somebody else. So please feel free to speak about that. And so this all is not in vain for everybody. We have a box in our tent where we've been collecting a couple of goodies over the last few months. It's a reward box for anyone that helps out. So if you do anything useful on the camp here, related, even slightly related to what we do, feel free to drop by afterwards, and you can grab a t-shirt or a couple of interesting books that we have. So there are crypto books in there, there are programming books, we got political books, history books, or whatever you're interested in. There's a couple of t-shirts, we have coffee, newspaper subscriptions, and similar things. So you can just feel free and look if there's anything in there that anyone likes. And anything else that is not gone until day 5, I mean, in the worst case, we'll be all alone in our tent for 5 days and no one gives a damn about helping us out. Anything else that has not been claimed until the end of the camp will go to the only people that are really making this whole thing run, and these are all these angels that probably most of you have seen, doing an incredible job in organizing this, having set up this whole place in the last 5 days, and continuing even during bad weather and rain and whatnot to make sure that this whole thing here can stay running. So the last thing, and that's where my talk will conclude, that it's about time to have a party, at least for me and for a couple of the others that are involved, because we've been working on this whole topic for, I think, 4.5 years now. And we haven't even managed to have one party in this whole time, even though we've planned for it so often, but it just never worked out. And for this camp this year, we thought, to hell with it. We're putting the site online today so we can also have a party. And that's what's going to happen tonight. We have a couple of DJs. We even have a VJ since last night. And we have a big tent down there. We've got a couple of chests of mate. And whoever does not find another nice party tonight is invited to come down and party with us and hopefully have a good time. So... Yeah, so here's to great weather, a lovely camp, and something positive coming out of all of that. Thanks a lot for all of your attention. I have no idea how much time we still have left, but if somebody has any questions or you have suggestions or so, we can take it from here. Thanks a lot.
Talk. Thank you. We have 15 minutes for questions now, and if you want to ask questions, please come to the microphone stand here in front.
Yes. But doesn't it also mean that you get a lot of noise? Because I can go and post like awesome article how I've been on the moon with pictures and shit. So how do you filter actual information from garbage? From stuff that is just whatever, crap, fiction?
Yeah, so you mean how we or whoever separates the good material from the bad material? Well, that's just a matter of having workforce behind it, I guess. So there's some automated things that you can do. For example, if there's one document reappearing, which is crap, you can very easily filter it based on the hash or other crypto properties of this document. But generally, it means that you will have to have a manual process where someone looks at the document. Now, we're not doing this. No, we're not doing this. Yeah, we're not doing this at all because we are not working with documents. Just our partners. So we just facilitate the technology. So sources can submit information to the partners we are working with, but it's up to the partners to work from a content perspective with these documents. Jacob.
Yes. I want to make a small correction on behalf of the organization team. You stated that there is no space for personal server setup, but indeed there is at the Hack Center, and you can consult your NOC help desk for the details on how to set up one.
You mean the colo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, have you been there or?
Yeah, I saw it this morning. I just called downhill.
Well, we saw it this morning as well, and it didn't really look like a colo yet, but that's good to hear. So we'll check it out. Thanks a lot.
So I had a couple questions. This is like the spookiest conference I've been to in a while. So I think that it would be really fantastic if everything you do is free software. And I wanted to advocate that you make sure that everything is free software. And I'm not going to comment too much on that because I know other people are going to ask about that. But you mentioned the German Privacy Foundation. And I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that those guys are just a front for the Defense Intelligence Agency of Germany. Sorry if I'm making any enemies here, but my question is, if you have a foundation, how do you avoid being infiltrated by all the bad motherfuckers that want to infiltrate your organization? And how would you take a rumor like that one, that the Privacy Foundation people are kind of related to the spooks? How would you take that rumor and sort of vet it and to know if it's true? And if you found out the Privacy Foundation people were indeed spooks, would you stop working with them or not? Well, that's my question.
So yeah, just to make that perfectly clear, in respect to the German Privacy Foundation, they are just one of the people offering a technology that allegedly is safe for people to transmit information, and we're just going to have a closer look on that. So it doesn't mean that we are in any way, we're not partnering with them or anything like that.
Like they run some tornadoes.
Yes, well, I'm a German and I know this problem, and I know all these rumors, and I know, which is the biggest problem, is that you have no idea what to make out of that. Yeah, so it basically means that there's a rumor or an elephant in the room, and no one can resolve that situation properly because you can't, which means that you always have this. The trustworthiness of the process. Sorry.
How do you ensure the trustworthiness of the process, giving the possibility that some people are on different tickets in there?
Yes. Well, for now, we don't really have to worry about this so much, just because we're a small team. And it's not growing to a size yet where we have to worry if anybody is being infiltrated. The rest, from my perspective, is proper engineering. It means that you have to build a system that has well-defined processes, that is technically savvy and technically at least hard enough so it will not be infiltrated by somebody. The organizational part you can only make sure by working with people that you know, and by taking enough time to figure out what kind of new people you're taking into the project. So, you know, I've been reading about myself that I might be paid by the FBI, you know, which is not the case, but I know that people are spreading, yeah. But you promised. But it's generally, you know, these rumors are one thing, and on the other hand, I think we sort of shouldn't be scared just by all these rumors, but because that will not enable us to be doing anything either. Yes, paranoia will kill us. I agree, Birgitta. Hi.
Hi, Daniel. Well, Jacob did a teaser for my question. You want to inspire confidence and credibility. You want feedback and technical input and participation. What could possibly justify that every bit of software produced so far is not released as free speech software?
Well, if you see, it is free software. It's just not open source right now. So, and this is due to the overhead that, and other than that,
where's the code? Where's the code?
Well, I'm sure that you're using even code that we are using. You know, it just doesn't. Just because it's not labeled doesn't mean that that it's not free or not open source or whatever. Yeah. So right now, you see that the practical problem we have is that we are just busy, and the moment we start putting software somewhere as open source and asking people to file bug reports and stuff like this, we need 2 more people just to take care of that kind of stuff. So it's more the overhead, Jeremy, that we are struggling with, and at some point in time that will change.
All right, I noticed that you had a whole slew of sections about the media and about engineering, but I'm wondering about the legal aspects. So, like, one of the things that was interesting about WikiLeaks was how you use different laws in different jurisdictions for the advantage. I've seen nothing here so far about how openleaks would do such a thing, and it'd be interesting to have more information about that.
Yeah, that is, you see, the thing is, the approach to that differs for every partner that we are working with. It differs for every organization. So the solution a German newspaper requires is completely different to a solution, for example, an NGO from France would require. Because they have two different legal situations. And depending on what that legal situation looks like, you can think about placing servers in different countries, maybe creating an entity in another country to receive legal protections in a third country or whatever. So it all depends on what the situation of each and every single partner is. And this is again part of this research process. I agree it wasn't explicitly mentioned, but it's part of the research process that we are currently busy with, is finding out with our partners what actually is a solution they need. If you are a German newspaper, I think it doesn't make any sense to put your submission platform into Sweden, for example, because there are really great laws here in Germany protecting the rights of the media when it comes to protecting sources. So you don't have to outsource that to another country, but that's something you have to identify. Where do you put servers? Do you put servers into a data center, or do you prefer housing them within a newspaper's building, for example, because the legal benefits might be better there?
Just a quick follow-up. So if I understand what you're saying, what about the situation, say, for example, I'll pick Canada. Canada has really, really poor data private, like there's good privacy laws, but really poor whistleblower protection, like probably some of the worst whistleblower protection in the world, where it's up to the Supreme Court judge. And if I would say a Canadian publication, I would not want any server that's taking data or any connection to any sort of leaking data in that country. So how would openleaks help me in that case?
Well, you see, for whoever we work with, the first part is research. It's finding out what the legal situation looks like and identifying if there's anything specific that needs to be regarded. So for Canada, that might be the situation you describe. And then the question is, what other third country might be fitting? So do you go to Sweden, or do you go maybe to Belgium or to another place? Does it make sense to register in that place as a newspaper? What do you need to register as a newspaper in order to receive legal protections? Maybe it makes sense to partner with one of our partners that is sitting in another country and that can help you out. So maybe it's good to put your servers not in a random data center, but with a German newspaper, because that German newspaper can help protect the Canadian newspaper. These are the kind of things that we're looking at. And it all depends on a case-by-case basis.
I just tried to access the link you mentioned on your slide before,
Yes.
the one at tats.net, and it doesn't work.
Sorry?
It seems to not work.
Yeah, well, it's, as I said, we wanted to launch it actually in the co-location that we couldn't find, so now they're moving it. But as much as I know, they're in the process in about 2 hours, so it should hopefully be finished soon.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry about that.
This might be kind of naive, but if you're short on time for opening the software stack, can we just have SSH access to the servers that we're going to review?
No, you can't.
Why not?
Huh?
Why not?
Because this is, you can't run this like a zoo where everyone can go and watch. As much as I think it might be really interesting to approach it like this, but
even if it's not the production servers, if it's just, as a reviewer, if I can SSH into a box, I can say if the production site is configured similar to this,
yes,
then I have
there is no
confidence in
production
what I
site
can
yet.
see, right?
So you see, there is no production site yet.
Okay.
So there are only the systems we are working with right now, and just given that I know that the technical people we are working with are not giving out SSH access. So if you have an interest in learning more about this, it's not a problem to speak about this, but we can't make this on such a generic level. That just wouldn't make any sense, I think.
Yeah. Hi, I think of two major problems you encounter. One is the political, and one is the, how can you prevent of being tamed by the powers of the world? Once you misbehave in their eyes, they try to control you, and how to prevent that?
they cannot tame us, you know, because we are actually, how do you say, we're not the claws, or we're not even the animal or something. We're just, I can't find a good analogy, but you know, the thing is, we do not even work with the content. openleaks does not even have access to the documents that are sent in. They are encrypted with key material that we cannot decrypt. You know, so we are just providing a tool. So now we can worry about all the mainstream media or all the NGOs in this world becoming tamed and not working with the material that is being sent to them. But I think that's not going to happen.
And I think the other problem would be in the moment that you misbehave or someone leaks something and it gets published and so on, and then you get caught to law and pushed to the wall, and then you're so busy defending and keeping your head up the water that you can't do anything practical anymore. I think that will be happening then one day, once you're very successful.
Let's not hope so.
Hi, Naif from Global.
Yeah, hi, how are you?
Well, in June, I've been in International Whistleblowing Research Network in London, just to understand which is the whistleblowing environment of who is doing advocacy for the policy making. Let me say, all lawyer, absolutely nothing about technical skills. And I realized that within large corporation, typically stock market quoted corporation, there is especially in the US, they are mandated to establish internal whistleblowing procedures. And so we find out that there are several also companies, commercial companies, that are provide commercial software to manage within public agencies and stock market companies whistleblowing platform, but still there's no, let me say, commercial, open or free for public agency and for enterprise, a platform. In order to look at the economic sustainability of the project, are you also thinking to provide such kind of openleaks platform to public agencies and to enterprises, for example, the internal audit department?
No. So, as I said to Jeremy before, openleaks is free, so it will be, and it will remain free. We're not going to charge anyone for using that platform. So what we want is to encourage the partners to help subsidize the platform, so to help paying all the fixed costs you have every month by investing into infrastructure. But we're not going to charge for the service or anything like this. And we're also not looking into becoming partners of companies that want internal whistleblowing mechanisms. So we want to partner with organizations that have an interest to inform the public, not to solve problems internally.
Init Lab in Sofia, Bulgaria wants to help reviewing your system. Is there any way? Init Lab from Sofia, Bulgaria wants to help reviewing your system. Is there any way they can do it from there?
Didn't really understand it, sorry.
I got a question from Sofia, Bulgaria. Init Lab, the local hackerspace, wants to help reviewing your system, code and setup. Is there any way they can do it from there?
Yeah, well, the site will be available via IP, so whoever is connected to the internet should be able to help test that system. So tell them the best thing would be to just write a mail or so to get in touch if they're not on site, and then we can coordinate.
They are listening to the stream.
Okay, well, hello.
So, since we are now at the end of our time, I will announce the last question.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to find out what is open about openleaks. I mean, I understood it's not GPL, it's not free software at the moment, that's all right. But I had hoped that you would use the principle of openness to ensure the integrity and at the end the trustworthiness of the whole process.
Yes.
Well, for now, you have not convinced me that you're doing that. And I want to ask you, so in which way is your software and your process really open in the sense of transparent, so that at the end of the day, the process can be trustworthy? Because you're making promises about handling key materials, for example, that I'm asking myself, how can I verify that if you don't have the software online in the form of
Yes.
open source?
Yes, well, that's a very valid point, Andy. So, and at some point in time, hopefully, we are at a point where this is not an issue anymore, and until then, we have to go step by step. You know, so right now there are people reviewing the technical software components. They're reviewing source code. It's just not that it's open to the public, but we have to, for now, rely on people in our environment or people that we know. And whenever that is done, whenever our developments are finished or whatever, we will probably be open sourcing some of that software as well. We're working on technical documentation that is documenting our processes and how all of this works out. And right now this is accessible to the partners that we are working with, just because of these are just overhead reasons. You need some time to finish writing up the documentation, then get some feedback, find out what you should explain better, and then at some point in time it makes sense to make it public. But right now it's just not feasible within the time constraints that we have and the manpower constraints. And the only thing that can solve that is some more time. And so you'll have to take my word, as much as I know that's not optimal, but that's the only thing I can give for now. And some of you will hopefully get some insight here at the camp. And as I said, whoever has an interest on a bilateral basis can always speak to us about how this works. Just not broadcast information. So, but we should have John ask his question as well.
Oh yeah, thank you for letting me get the N+1 question. But actually it's more of a comment, and I just want to thank you for trying to do this work, because if you succeed at it, then we get transparency in other parts of the world that have not had it. And if you fail at it, or if people think that you're lame or whatever, then maybe you inspire them to do it better.
Good point. Thank you very much. And after all, you know, it's not me. That's just something I didn't say before, you know. None of this would be possible without the incredible work of a lot of really motivated people that are actually doing all this work while I'm mostly being distracted because I'm speaking at conferences and with journalists. So never forget that there's lots of other people doing the actual work, and it's not all just about me. So thanks a lot.
Thank you for your talk and also for your work you have done. It's really great. Thank you.